Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. We are gratified with the court's ruling today regarding the city's eligibility to pursue a plan of adjustment under Chapter 9 of the Federal Bankruptcy Code. While we are very pleased, we remain very concerned about the need to adjust the city's debt, to improve its level of services for its citizens, and to also prepare for the city to exit this receivership in a fashion that restores democracy to the city. We have some heavy work ahead of us, but first I'd like to thank the judge for his thoughtful and reasoned opinion, as well as thanking his clerks and his staff who clearly spent a lot of time going through the record, analyzing the arguments, and preparing a very meticulous ruling in this regard. We're also pleased that we're able to make some headway, even in this process, on revitalizing city services, putting in a new solid waste contract, getting the lights initiative restored, helping the new police chief drive down crime, and otherwise reinvent and revitalize the city so that it can address the many concerns that have been coming this way for so long. But as I said before, we have a lot of work ahead of us, and what I would ask both our creditors, none of whom, by the way, filed an objection to our eligibility, but equally important, our labor partners, to come forward with us and to take this opportunity, even in the process of litigation and appeals, to try to get at the sorely needed reform that this city has got to achieve so we can move forward into a new day. And we can prepare, hopefully, a consensual plan of adjustment and be able to remove the receivership over the city so that it can grow and thrive. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
Explain to us what they mean by clean slate.
Sure.
Can you break that down a little bit?
Typically in bankruptcy organizations, clean slate or fresh start is an opportunity to relieve ourselves as a city of the crushing debt burden that we have. As the judge mentioned during his ruling, approximately 40% of every dollar that the city takes in the general fund goes to paying legacy debts, either pension obligations, some of which are unfunded, or debt. That's just not sustainable because in the next 3 to 4 years, that number is going to go to almost 65%, almost two-thirds. We have to relieve the city of that burden, and that would be the clean slate. In other words, the city would get to a position that it could go forward and pay its bills as they become due in the ordinary course. Yes, sir.
Did anything the judge say today change course for you?
No. The judge's ruling was straight down the middle. I think I had said before in various press opportunities, the issue of federal preemption and supremacy are things that I personally have been involved with throughout my career, and consequently there were no surprises in that ruling. It's pretty straightforward. I know it is troubling to some people, given the state law, but this has happened in many, many areas, many, many times. And as Judge Rhodes said, virtually in the 30 years that I've been doing this type of work, there has not been a restructuring where some contracts are not adjusted. It's just that the contracts here have a human dimension because they're pensions. That's very concerning. Yes, ma'am.
How do we go forth talking with the citizens of Detroit? Because this is about Detroit, not just the lawmakers and the money. What happens for the citizens of Detroit?
Well, hopefully the citizens will begin and already have begun to see a better level of services returned to the city so that the city becomes a more attractive place to live. In some capacities that's happened. Right here in downtown, for instance, the city thrives. We're 97% leased. There are many projects. If you go down Woodward Corridor, you'll see a number of new apartment buildings and lofts going up, a number of new mixed-use construction. So the city downtown is thriving. What we really want to do is to make sure that that type of reform is pushed out to the neighborhoods. But equally important, I'd like to say this to the many city employees. We're going to continue to pay salaries as they become due, pay all benefits and checks as they become due, and continue to pay our bills as they become due in the ordinary course. In fact, for the first time in many years, the city is actually paying its trade creditors and others on a 30-day net basis. We're paying things on time. So it's business as usual in Detroit, but this determination gives us a better opportunity to go forward with that clean slate.
Yes.
Yet,
Right here, I got it, right here in the back.
Pensions, how much you'll cut on the pensions? Figure it out where that money is.
those discussions are currently part of the mediation process being undertaken by Judge Rosen. We thank Judge Rosen and his team of mediators for that process, and we're hope that we're able to get to some more definitive numbers specifically, but that process is somewhat confidential, so I can't give you a specific number. What I can say is we hope that is consensual.
When do you think this plan,
Your healthcare plan that you recently came up with and then put on hold, is that still going forward January 1st, or is that still on hold?
No, it's still on hold. We decided that it was best, given some of the things that were going on with the exchanges, that we extend that for 2 months, and we're still going to do that.
And when extended to when?
March 1st.
March 1st, thank you.
you may have just answered that question, and that is, when do you think you'll actually have the details of the plan of adjustment in place? Realistically, when will you have it all ironed out?
My legal team, headed by the attorneys that you've seen, Bruce Bennett, David Hyman, Heather Lennox, Corinne Ball, the other attorneys involved, we're preparing a plan of adjustment right now. We're going to work throughout this month, even over the holiday, to be able to produce a plan first, frankly, for our creditors and our labor partners, so they get an opportunity to have a look, and then to publish that plan, actually file it, probably within the first week of January.
Mr. Orr.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the DIA
Yes, sir.
assets and people worried about that. What can you tell them as you stand here today?
You know, I said when I was in this room, I think on March 25th, that everything was on the table, and that remains true, even now, these 7 months later. We are at a point now where, as you know, Christie's was hired to produce an assessment on the Phase 1 art, the approximately 500 or some odd pieces that comprise the higher pieces. We should be in a position to publish that assessment within the next week or two. That assessment will drive a discussion about what, if anything, we need to do with regard to the art museum. One thing that is helpful is that there has been an effort led by Judge Rosen with some members of the philanthropic community to see if there's any form of contribution or other financial incentives that could help us address all of our creditor requirements and perhaps help us deal with the DIA solution. But that solution will be baked into the plan of adjustment that we will publish at the beginning of the year.
Harold?
All right, there are many people who are worried right now, retirees that are worried about today's ruling. What can you tell them that would put them in a better comfort zone than they are right now?
You know, when I said I was very pleased, I very specifically stayed away from the word happy, because I think there's still much work that needs to be done, and one of them, of course, is the retiree issue. What I can tell them is we're trying to be very thoughtful, measured, and humane about what we have to do. What I can tell them is that the reality is there's not enough money to address the situation no matter what we do. That is clear, and nobody's really disputing that. And what I can tell them is that they have representation that we ask for, and the city is paying for. We pay for the retiree committee, so that there are people there that can support and put forward their interest. But we're going to try to do this in a very measured and thoughtful way, but it has to be done.
What kind of help do you expect from Washington in terms of grants and other federal funds?
Well, a month or so ago, we had the big meeting with our federal partners who came in and talked about increasing grants, and a number of grants, CDBG, HUD grants, SAFER grants, so Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice grants, and those are now starting to come into the city. In fact, there's a new SAFER grant coming in to hire additional FTEs over at the fire department. Some people say that's only for 2 years, but it's helpful no matter what help we get in that fashion. And we'll continue to work along that way with existing federal programs that are able to assist the city with its current needs.
Kim in the back.
With so much financial weight over the DIA as well as in the retiree pension and healthcare issues, can you see a greater need to cut one or the other, or can you place a weight on, well, we're going to affect the DIA before we affect the retirees?
Well, I think you have to be careful. People say affect the DIA. Let me say again, the Detroit Institute of Art is a facility owned by the city of Detroit. The Detroit Institute of Arts Corporation manages that facility for the benefit of Detroit. Those are Detroit assets. They're different than pensioners, which are obligees that we have as beneficiaries. So I don't view it as binary or balanced. What I can say, and it's something that the judge mentioned in his decision today, we have to be fair and equitable in our treatment with all creditor classes, whether they're financial creditors or whether they're retirees, pensioners, and the like, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Mr. Orr, are you on track for leaving on time now that we in bankruptcy is done?
Well, we hope to stay on track. This eligibility ruling, you know, I likened it to taking a very long trip. We had our map out, we had the tank full of gas, and the car was in the driveway. We're now heading down the road. But we've got a long road ahead. You know, we could have a flat tire, there could be some detours, but we're on track to keep our schedule to meet the requirements under the statute that ends basically at the end of September 2014.
Detroit
Yes, sir.
finally hit the bottom, if you will. Everybody's talking about us having a fresh start and what have you. How soon before Detroit is a better city, a city that people want to move to, a city that's not just, that just doesn't feel safe, but is actually safe? How soon before Detroit is relatively back on its feet, in your honest opinion?
Okay, honest opinion. Well, two things. As I said, I think downtown and in some areas of Detroit, you're already seeing that. I mean, downtown has a 97% lease rate. You couldn't move here if you wanted to, and you're seeing a tremendous amount of construction and interest into the city. The real issue is, how do the neighborhoods feel, the other 130 miles of city going out? And that's why we're so focused on dealing with blight issues, lighting, policing, garbage collection, solid waste, so on and so forth. But I will say this in direct response to your question, is something that Attorney General Holder said at the meeting we had with the federal government representatives a month or so ago. One of the things we need to do is to recognize first and foremost that we've been marching our way here for 60 years. That's 2 generations. To put it bluntly, there were no computers during that time. It's going to take some time for us to dig ourselves out of this predicament and out of this situation citywide. It's a lot of city. It's very large. So what I would ask is that there be some perspective, some gain in terms of dealing with the time frame that's involved to deal with the magnitude. I am hopeful that between the lighting demonstration projects and the blight projects we're doing, every area within the city will see a demonstration of what the city will look like. But it's going to take us some time, perhaps with blight, somewhere between 2 to 3 years, but with other issues, generating income, tax collection, so on and so forth, some period of time. Hey,
What
Darren.
about the water department? How does it factor into plans moving forward?
Well, as we said, we're looking at any and all transactions that make sense for the city. Right now, there are negotiations ongoing regarding a transaction authority for the water department. Here again, the city would continue to own all the pipes, the switches, the lines, the capital infrastructure of the water department, but an authority would be in place to actually run the department for the city's benefit and pay us some form of compensation, rent if you will, for that benefit, and that compensation would go into the bucket for creditors. Those discussions are ongoing. It is my understanding that they are going relatively well. They are, however, complicated and will take some time, and in fact, I'm meeting with our advisors tomorrow on the status of those discussions.
Residential taxes are an important revenue stream for the city. How will the plan of adjustment take into the population loss that may still come with Detroit? If we're down to 500,000 people, that's a big amount, that's a large amount of money in taxes that won't be coming in, that won't come in.
Well, one of the things that we're obligated to do under 436, the state statute, is provide a 12-year budget and 10-year projections, and we're in that process now. Our projections more or less are flatline and include an assumption, it's an assumption, that the population has more or less stabilized where it is at approximately 700,000. It may vary from 685, 697, but 700,000 or so. If, in fact, residents see enhanced services, better quality of life, a safer city, they may actually go up, but we have to assume that under the best set of circumstances, that population will remain stable, so we're making that assumption in our projections.
We understand Commissioner Austin resigned. Can you confirm that?
We're talking about the bankruptcy right now, we'll get to that later.
What about
Down front here, down front,
Mr. Orr,
down front, we'll get back there.
you talked in the beginning about the exit strategy is also on your plates to
Yes.
restore the city to just democracy. On that vein, you have a new mayor coming in January. tell us a little bit about the talks that you have with him? I mean, what will his role be, with you or without you?
No, I'm hopeful the role will be with me. The mayor and I have had several, MayorElect, I'm sorry. We still have a mayor, Mayor Bing. And the MayorElect and I have had several discussions that have been quite favorable, I might add. Certainly, he comes in with a significant amount of knowledge of restructuring and city structures, and I hope to work with him to enhance services for the citizens of Detroit.
That was my question.
Okay.
Last question.
Where are you at in terms of discussions relative to a cram-down strategy?
Well, you know, we're not quite there. Like I said, we want to put out our plan first and give our creditors and our labor partners the opportunity to look it over. As you all have heard, several weeks ago, we were able to reach an agreement with our EMT union, POAM, Police Officers of America, on some labor terms for a new collective bargaining agreement, and we're in active discussions with several other uniform unions about another settlement regarding collective bargaining agreements. So hopefully, and we keep saying this, and I want to emphasize to everyone out there, this eligibility ruling is a start for us, but it's also an overture. It's also an invitation that we really, irrespective of whatever legal tactic any of the parties have to take with an appeal or what they have to say for public consumption. By now, I think it's fair to say I'm used to that. But it really is an overture, an opportunity for us to work together on a consensual resolution so we won't have to get to a cram down for the benefit of the city and for all of the interested stakeholders, including retirees, employees, and citizens. Let's come together, let's work together, and let's get this done and show not just America, but the rest of the world, the best of the American spirit of working together.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you very much.